I go places, I don't do it everywhere I go, but when I go places, I like to go ahead and speak on this subject because have a seminar either at night time or stay over an extra night or just if a morning like this is okay to help people with their finances, because I know that a lot of Christians don't know, they just don't know that they can be successful, because I didn't know it to that degree. I was already pretty successful, and just from the natural standpoint. Now, there's different ways you need to understand. There's different ways that a person can be successful. And financially, the Bible says that every person, every laborer's worth his hire. Now, you can become a good, steady employee, a good, strong employee, and a good employee to your employer. The Bible has quite a bit to say about employee relationships with your employer. Now, always remember this. If you study the Bible, you will find out that your employer don't owe you anything. Amen. Because he's the one that gave you a job. But you owe your employer everything. You owe him, if you've agreed to work 8 hours a day, then you owe him 8 hours of work a day. If that's what you agreed on, that's what you're getting paid for. And now if you want to find favor with your employer, then take an extra step, go the extra mile, and be a better employee. As long as you're a clock puncher, and you're not going to get there 5 minutes early or 15 minutes early, you're just going to wait till time comes to punch the clock, and you're going to punch it. You get off at 4 o'clock, and you're going to punch it at 4 o'clock, and take off a run. Well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's what you get paid for, and you give 8 hours of work, and so you have a right to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But I know one of my first public jobs, not the first one, but one of my first public jobs, I would go in. I got me a job as a teenager in an A&P store. Now, my daddy had taught us to work, and we had to work pretty hard. And I know I'd go to work. I was supposed to go to work at 8 o'clock, and I'd go to work I go to work at sometimes 6 o'clock of the morning, and sometimes 7 o'clock. And we had a night watchman, this real big supermarket in Knoxville, Tennessee, on West Cumberland, right there close to the University of Tennessee. And I would go to work there, and after I worked there for about 3 months, Mr. Bishop, the store manager, come by one day, and he says, "Norvel, come back in the back. I want to talk to you. Let's go back in the stockroom. I want to talk to you." So I went back to the stockroom, and he said, "Now, I'm just a teenage boy." He says, "Now, Norvel," he says, I don't know how old I was, maybe 17 or something. He said, "When you get your paycheck this coming Saturday," he said, I'm going to give you a raise. You'll have a raise in your paycheck." I said, "Well, okay, thank you. I appreciate that." He said, "But now, don't tell anybody else," because he said, "I'm not going to give nobody else a raise." He said, "I'm only giving you a raise." He said, "Now, don't tell anybody you got one." I said, "Okay, I won't tell anybody." He said, "I'm giving you one because of your faithfulness." He said, "The night watchman tells me that you come in sometimes at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to work." Now, Mr. Johnson, my supervisor, I have to give an account to him. A&P Company had a man named Mr. Johnson that lived downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, at the Firegood Hotel. He was a tall guy. He wore glasses. He looked like the dean of students of a university or something. He'd always dressed usually in dark-colored suits. A tall guy, and he wore glasses. He looked just like a dean, and he acted like one, too. A&P Company in Knoxville, Tennessee. Of course, Knoxville is a pretty good-sized city. And I believe they had about 8 supermarkets in that town and around the edge of the town. And so Mr. Johnson was over all of the 8 supermarkets. He was the supervisor over that territory. Now, his job was to get in his car every morning and go to visit all 8 supermarkets that day. Now, my store manager was named Mr. Bishop. So when he came in, when he walked in, every store manager just about come to attention, because he was a supervisor and he was the inspector every day. And so he'd walk in, he'd say, okay, I'm going to hurry. He called him Bishop. His name was Mr. Bishop, but he called him Bishop because he was older than Mr. Bishop. He just said, Bishop, come on. He says, I'm going to hurry, let's go. And so they'd walk like this, and they made their rounds. They'd leave the office, and Mr. Johnson was like this, and Mr. Bishop beside of him, and Mr. Bishop would start looking like this right here, the displays they had in the store, and he'd come to the meat department first, and they'd turn left, and this long meat counter, and Mr. Johnson would go along, walking slowly like this, looking at every piece of meat. If he saw one was a little bit dark, he'd say, hey, Bishop, have him take that dark meat out of here. Put fresher meat in there. So Mr. Bishop would take a note, make a note of it. He'd say, hey, Bishop, you got your stock when has got this display too far out. Tell him to take all this down and redo it. That could be dangerous on a customer. And then they come to the dairy department, then they come to my department. He said, Mr. Johnson, Norvel, has been asking me, he kept commenting on your department, and he said, who's in charge of this department? I said, that teenage boy over there does all this work. He said, Mr. Johnson says, you're kidding. He says, no. He said, he has the cleanest department and the best looking department of all the 8 supermarkets I have. He said, his is the best. He said, he kept commenting on it, and one day he asked me, who's in charge of this department? Every day it's like this. I said, well, he is. He said, that kid comes in here at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, he don't get paid till 8. But he comes here at 6 o'clock in the morning and works, and we open the doors at 8 o'clock. He has his department all swept out, all clean, everything up. It looks just like a picture. He said, is that right? He said, yeah, but he don't get paid. He said, he just does it. So he might come in at 7 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes he may come in at 6, 6:30. The night watchman tells me he comes in early and early in the morning. And so, I don't know, a couple of more months went by, and Mr. Bishop come by one day and says, come on back to the room and talk to you, Norvel. We go back to the stockroom, he says, Norvel, I'm giving you another raise. Now I'm like 17 years old. Now the only reason I did that is because my daddy had taught us kids to work ever since we were little. I was taught to work. And we had to get up early and go to work. And so if you're not, so you do what you're taught to do. You know, you don't, when you're taught to do a certain thing, you just do it. And I'd wake up early, so I'd just go to work. And I didn't mind working. And I wanted my department to look good. And so he said, I'm giving you another raise, but don't tell anybody. I said, Mr. Bishop, you don't have to give me a raise. I said, you're so nice to me. I said, you're like my second daddy. And he was. He was one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in my life. It was Mr. Bishop, the manager of that store. Man, I thought not as much, but I thought nearly as much as him as I did my daddy. I mean, he just treated me just kind all the time. I mean, every day. He was so kind to me. But he was just a good man. And so I said, but you don't have to give me a raise. I come in. But he said, you come in. I said, I come in early because I want to have the best department. I want my department to be first class. He says, well, it is. That's for sure. Now listen to me, people. It's just as easy to be first class as it is second class, or third class, or fourth class, or fifth class. You start getting over and being in the fourth or fifth class, nobody don't want you anyway. You usually wind up getting fired. If they have to fire somebody, you're always the first one they fire. But if you're the best employee they got, they'll hold on to you, brother. I'm going to tell you right now, they'll hold on to you. Not only will they hold on to you, every company and every corporation in the world that I know of, they will promote you if you become the best employee they got. They are looking for people that has some kind of leadership, some kind of know-how. Well, at University of Tennessee there, when I was 17 years old, there's a Greek man. I didn't know I had an eye for it. But the only reason I had an eye for it is because I could have had another career if I'd listened to them, but I didn't want to do it. So when I was in the third grade, I took side pleurisy. Now, what that is you take some kind of an infection in your side pleurisy, and it forms pus on the inside of your body, in your side right here. Now they'd take me to the hospital when I was in the third grade and hold me on the operating table, and the doctor would come in with a needle about the size of my little finger, about the size of a turfing needle or bigger, and punch me here all the way into the hollow, all the way through my side, and let that pus out. And he told my mother, he says, you're going to take him out of school, because if he catches cold this winter, he'll die. He can't catch one cold. He'll die. So you better take him out of school. The third grade, I was in the third grade, so you better have him drop out of school. Keep him in the house all winter. Don't let him go outside all winter. Don't even let him go outside one day. Don't let him go outside until the spring sun starts shining and gets warm outside. Don't let him go outside. Don't let him get no breeze, and keep him warm. Well, in those days, that's way back there. Those days, we had a fireplace in the house, and my mother would heat irons and wrap them up in cloths and quilts and blankets and put them in my feet all the time. See, if you keep your feet warm, you don't usually catch no cold. Your feet has a lot to do with you, And then on my side here, she put a hot water bottle all the time. All winter long she did that. The fireplace was in the living room, so they moved my bed in the living room next to the fireplace. So I'd stay warm all day long at the fireplace. And so my brother and sister went to school. I had a little sister, a year and a half older than me, and a brother about 4.5 years older than me. So I'd memorize songs. I had about 60 songs memorized when I was in the third grade. I'd memorize songs, and I'd count all the cracks in the wall. I'd count everything in the wall all day long, every day, all winter. And you're in that room. And so my little old hands, when I was in the third grade, and we had, I don't know about now, but in those days at school we had football season, because I know you have that. We had basketball season, we had baseball season, we had a softball season, we had top spinning season. Now, maybe you boys don't know what that is. Okay, we had top spinning season at our school. It's when you go down and they get a whole supply of tops in, and you have a top with a little sharp thing on the end of it, and you wrap a quarter around it like this, and you spin your top. And you spin it like that. And so we'd draw a circle like this at school, and we'd spin the tops, and you try to hit somebody else's top. You try to bust it or do whatever you could, knock a hole in it, or do what you could, see. And so we'd spin tops like that. Then we had marble season, where everybody played marbles. You have a round ring like this, and you get in and we're going to play with this. Let's say you're going to play fives. And so there's 3 boys playing, or 5 boys playing, or 6 boys playing. And you put 5 marbles each in there, and you play for keeps. Playing for keeps means all of them you get out. And then we draw a straight line, and we all shoot to the straight line. Whoever gets the closest shoots first, second, third, fourth, fifth. There's 5 boys playing. So I started shooting marbles in my room when I was sick in the third grade. I started school. In those days, you start school when you're 5 years old. Now, they don't have that in a public school. They don't have it anymore, but they used to have primer. When I went to school, you could start school when you're 5 years old, and you go, it's just like any other grade, you stay all day. You go 1 year in the primer, 1 year in the first, 1 year in the second, 1 year in the third, 1 year in the fourth, unless you pass 2 grades in one seat. So I started school when I was 5 years old, and the teacher gets up. I remember if you go to the store and you buy a penny's worth of candy, they give you 6 pieces for a penny. 6 pieces of candy for a penny. How many of you know what grocery mixed candy is? Anybody know what grocery mixed candy is? Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, he does. Some of the pieces are hard and some of the pieces are waxy. They give you 6 pieces of grocery mixed candy for a penny. Everything costs a nickel. Coca-Cola costs a nickel. Double Cola costs a nickel. Hershey bar costs a nickel. Everything costs a nickel, really. Hamburgers cost a nickel. Little hamburgers cost a nickel. Just about everything costs a nickel. Big hamburgers cost a dime. Ice cream cone cost a nickel. If you had a nickel, brother, you could buy some at the store, whatever you wanted. If you crave an ice cream or candy or whatever. And so the teacher gets up and she says, I'm going to give, and we're all 5 years old. She says, I'm going to give a dime. Well, you talk about rich. You go to the store with a dime, you go to the store 10 times. You get 6 pieces of candy each time. Now, grown people then, they made 50 cents a day when they worked hard labor. 50 cents a day. Not $1, 50 cents a day. Boys 10, 12, 13 years old, they made 25 cents a day. I had uncles that worked for, where the Magic Chef stove foundries out in Cleveland, Tennessee, where they make all the stoves around the world. They worked there and they made, for 40 hours, they made $3.75 a week. $3.75 a week. Working 40 hours in the stove foundry. My uncle, I never will forget it, he bought it with real beautiful horns and stuff. When he bought it, a brand new Ford car for $420. Brand new Ford. Now you might say, when was this, Norvel? Back in the 1700s? No, it wasn't that far. No, it was the 1700s. And so me and another boy was the only one that could say our ABCs. So we got a dime each. My mother taught me to say my ABCs, and before I went to school, I could say them all. And so we got a dime each. And so I would try to learn different things, you know. And so I'm in the 3rd grade, and I learned, I was always the best student in the room with figures. Now, I wasn't the best student in the room and I was real good in geography, but history. But I wasn't the best student in spelling. I wasn't the best student in the school, in the room. But I was usually the best one in the room in arithmetic or with figures. I was so good at it, they'd have me stand up in front of the class. And I was a little bitty kid. I could just add figures like this right here, just like I talked. And other kids would sit around and go, oh, brother. But I just do it. I could just see it, you know. I could do it. And when I was I started shooting marbles in my room. And when I first started, there could be a marble right here. And I could be right here when I'm shooting with my towel. How many of you know what a towel is? 3, 4 people. You all live in America? A towel is the marble you shoot with. See? And so I'd shoot like this right here. My little old hands in the 3rd grade. I'd try to shoot and hit that marble. Are you kidding? My towel would go this way. When I first started, I couldn't, and I kept on practicing. I'd practice all day long. Thousands of times. And I got to the point where I could hit that marble every time and stick right where the marble is at. Then I could get all the other marbles out of the ring. In that one winter. And I'm in the 3rd grade. I got so good at shooting marbles, the neighbors would gather around our house at nighttime and sit around the walls, and I was so little, and watch me play marbles on the floor. They just could not believe a little old kid that little could shoot that far and hit marbles like that every time. And I couldn't do it either. Well, believing the Bible is like that. Because you're a natural man, and the Bible was written by a supernatural God that tells the truth all the time. And you're a natural person living on earth trying to find out the truth. And you're still, most all human beings are still in the wondering stage. They wonder if God would heal them if they're dying with cancer. I just wonder if the Lord would make me normal if I'm crippled. Well, He won't as long as you wonder. Now, if you ever get to the point of knowing that He will, then He will. You understand that? Now, you can take the Scriptures where He's promised you healing or a miracle, and you say, well, how do you get to the point that you can believe that? You keep quoting that all the time, just like shooting marbles. You keep quoting it all the time. You quote it thousands of times until you get to believing it. Do you know that you're not, you know one of the reasons you're not successful financially, if you're not successful financially, one of the reasons why you're not successful financially is because you don't know how. You don't have that kind of faith. You don't have that kind of confidence. You don't know how God works along that line. And you're just hoping that sometime it'll happen to you, that you can have thousands of dollars in your savings account. Well, now, the only reason I worked for A&P Company at 17 years old because I'm a school dropout. I never did finish high school. I just dropped out. My mother died when I was 10 with cancer. My brother, a football player in high school, he died at the age of 18 with Bright's disease, that's a kidney disease. So they're both dead. And my daddy had an uncle who lived in Knoxville, and he had 3 sons, and they wanted me to come and live with him. And I began to talk to my daddy, let me go live with his brother. He wouldn't do it, said, I don't want you to drop out of school, son. But I just kept on and on bugging my daddy about it, and finally he let me. You know, if you keep on and on bugging somebody, you usually get it. But Daddy knew I was a good worker, and he knew I'd work, and he believed I could make a living. So he let me go. And so I just kept on shooting. When I was in the 3rd grade, I picked it up. So when I went back to school the next year, my class was in the 4th grade, and I'm still in the 3rd grade. I go back to school the next year, and marble season come along, and I'd win all the marbles. I'm in the 3rd grade. Them 5th grade boys and 6th grade boys, they'd want to challenge me, and so I'd play them. And the 7th grade boys and 8th grade boys, they just knew I could because I'm this little cotton-head thin kid, you know, and they just know they could beat me, you know, but they couldn't know because I could do it. I mean, you give me an open shot, that's it. Because I practiced so much. I'd come home with my pockets full of marbles. I was so little, and they'd wake me down. My grandmother, she'd say, I hear Norvel coming. I'd get off the school bus, and I couldn't hardly walk. I had all my pockets full of marbles. I had to get I had to put them in a box. And you could buy marbles in a sack, you know, a big sack of marbles for 10 cents. You could buy a pretty good sized sack for a nickel, but a large sack for 10 cents. But we'd play marbles. So I didn't know it, but when I went to work for A&P Company when I was 17, I think it was, at the University of Tennessee, there was a Greek man there that owned the Tennessean restaurant on West Cumberland Avenue. And him and some of those Greek men, they liked me real well because I was a good worker. And, you know, Greek people, they just love good workers because they work hard themselves, man. Greek people work hard. And they liked me real well. All them Greek men did it, even though I was a young kid, because I was such a hard worker. And they all tried to get me to go to work for them because I was such a hard worker. And I try to be nice to people because my folks taught me that. But he wanted to teach me how to shoot pool. Well, I never shot no pool. But he went to teaching me how to shoot pool. At the end of the first year, I could beat him. That same knowledge I had for marbles came around with pool. And so I became a pool hustler. But I hustle basically pool, but they try to get me to go professionally. They want to back me up and spend money and back me up and everything, and take me all around the world. But I didn't do that. But they really wanted me to this furnish the money and everything. Go with me around the world, put on exhibitions and play and challenge the hustlers and do it. I mean, but do it professionally. But I wouldn't do it. So I says, no, I don't think I want to do that. To go around the world. I says, no, my daddy, brother. If he finds out I go around the world playing pool, brother. My families are Baptists, and they don't know anything about pool rooms. They think pool rooms are where crooks are at. And there is some crooks come in there, but they're not. Just a sport's all it is. But pool or snooker is one of those kind of sports that hardly nobody ever conquers. Here in Richmond, you can find 100 good football players. You can find all the high schools around here. You can find probably 150 boys that play basketball. You won't find 3 boys that can play pool. You won't find 3 boys in this city can break a pool table and run the table. It's not an easy sport to master, to ever get good at it. It's just one of those things. You have to practice a lot. Now, you might do it if you practice and practice and practice. You can take the scriptures in the Bible, whatever God says, and if you'll practice it. But see, many people read the Bible, especially on finances, and they just do whatever they want to do. They don't pay attention to what God says. They just do whatever they want to do. And so they don't pay attention to what it says. I just thought, growing up, I thought, well, you're supposed to work hard and get a job in what you do. And I just thought, I'm supposed to work hard, and if I make anything, I can make some. Or if you go get a degree, University of Tennessee or some college, that's fine. And if I do that, and work real hard and save my money, I might be able to be worth something someday. And that's fine. And you can get a degree at University of Virginia, University of Richmond. And if you work hard and be faithful to that, you can develop into being worth millions of dollars sometimes if you know what to do. And we'll step out and do it if you learn what to do, if you're a good investor. But I got mine through just sheer labor. I was hustling pool out in Omaha, Nebraska. 2 fellows that went with me, and come down to Kansas City, and I liked Kansas City for some reason. And they went back to Knoxville, Tennessee, and I stayed in Kansas City by myself because I liked it real well. But the people that I played pool with, they run out after a while, and I didn't have nobody to play then. But I liked Kansas City so well, I got me a job there. And of course, it's all plan of my life, and I didn't know it at that time because my life didn't belong to God at that time. And but I was raised in a Baptist church. But I couldn't find no more people to play me pool very much, And Kansas City, they had a golf game they called golf on a real large pool table, and most anybody could play that game. I got to play some of that, but all the hustlers, if I could beat them, they would never play me no more. So, but I wanted to stay there, and I got me a job. Looking through the paper one day, and I saw a job with an engraving company traveling. So I went down and interviewed, and they hired me, and I took that job. And I didn't make any money for the first year of that job. And then I saw where I could, though, traveling to universities all over the country and handling merchandise for them. And so I just kept on doing that. And finally, the man, after about 2 or 3 years, the man that hired me, he quit and went to work for our competitor. By that time, I was having the biggest reports of anybody with the company, so I asked them to give me the sales manager job, and they told me, no, Norvel, You can't. Norvel, you're 23 years old. Well, give me a break. They're not going to make you a national sales manager. You're 23 years old. They're not going to make you a national sales manager. You can't. You're too young. I said, well, who's your biggest producer? And they said, you are. I said, well, I can do it. I'm telling you, I can do it. I can build a sales organization. And so I left Minneapolis, Minnesota, the manufacturing company, and went out to Austin, Texas. And they sent me a telegram and told me I was been elected as national sales manager from the board of directors. So I worked for 7 years, hiring one salesman at a time, training him. In those days, you could buy a new Cadillac for about $8,000. And I'd hire one salesman at a time and train him. It's all commission, no expense account, nothing. It's all commission. And 7 years went by, and I had 42 salesmen working for me. And I was making a kickback on all the salesmen around the country I'd trained, my whole sales force. So I was making about $5,000 a week. In those days, you could buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home for $16,000. And so I'm going along real good. And of course, when I was 23 years old, I went to New York. I met this girl in New York through a friend of mine. The fellow I was traveling with on the university campus, he graduated from the University of Missouri. He wanted me to go home with him in New York and meet his sister. He had a sister about my age. And so I met her. She introduced me to her girlfriend, and her girlfriend was prettier than her. And so her girlfriend looked like Elizabeth Taylor. She was 17 years old, and she was working in a store, a cosmetic place in the store. So I went the next day to see her and to buy some stuff from her. I'm brother. And I don't know, that girl, she was so pretty. She looked like Elizabeth Taylor's sister, looked just like it. But she went home and told her folks, she said, I met the man today I'm going to marry. I'm going to marry him. I'm going to marry him. I think I was 22 at that time. She said, he says, a tall, blonde-headed boy from Tennessee, from down south, and I'm going to marry him. She was raised in Boston, moved over to New York. She'd never met anybody like me before. And so she said, I'm going to marry him. And so she did. We got married when she was 18. And you know, when you look like Elizabeth Taylor, you can usually marry anybody you want to. If you don't believe it, ask Elizabeth. She can tell you. I mean, if you want to marry a good-looking senator from Virginia, I just go ahead and marry him. You understand that? If you want to marry the best actor in the world, just go ahead and marry him. If she was single now, she could get married 1,000 times, even though she's in her 60s. But she's still keeping her looks part of the time, especially when she don't get fat. She's still a sharp lady. She can get married as many times as she wants to get married. But she's married this young guy now, you know, in his 30s, and she's in her 60s. So I don't know, maybe he can hold her to the grindstone. I don't know. But anyway, this girl went ahead and got married. She was raised as Catholic and I was raised as Baptist. We went ahead and got married. She was raised in the social world. I really didn't know what Catholics believed. I just knew that, that I thought a lot of her. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I didn't love her as much as she loved me. I don't know, that girl, she went nuts over me for some reason. I mean, she just flipped out. Well, you know, when you got it, you got it. No, I was kidding. No, I wasn't. No. Oh, brother. But I was 22 then. I wasn't 45 then. I was 22. The girl said to me here a while back, she says, Brother Norvel, she says, am I the right age to date you? I said, well, I don't know. I said, how old are you? She says, well, I'm about 40. I said, 40? She said, yeah. She said, but I can't tell how old you are. She said, you look the same as you did 20 years ago. She says, well, I can't tell how old you are. She says, how old are you? I said, none of your business. She said, I said, how old do you think I am? She says, oh, I don't know. I can't hardly guess people's age. I says, well, you can guess if you want to. I probably won't tell you, but you can guess. She said, well, I don't know if I want to guess or not. She said, I don't want to embarrass you. I might guess too high. I said, well, so what? I'm not easily offended. That's all right. I said, if you want to guess, take a crack at it. She said, okay. She said, I'll guess. She says, I'll guess that you're 48. I said, 48? When I said that, she goes, I knew it. I guessed too high, didn't I? I said, well, what do you think? She says, are you 42? I said, just dream on, little dreamer. She couldn't tell age for sure. Now, I know I don't look like I'm 85. Well, I'm not 85 either. Don't look so still, you know. Blessed be the name of the Lord forever. Did you know that God says in the Bible that He would make you wealthy and keep you young? You see, if you don't read the Bible, if you don't read the Bible a lot, you don't even know what's in there. It's amazing what's in there. God says, if you'll do what I tell you to do, He said, the Lord says, if you'll do these things, He said, if you'll keep the Sabbath day holy, God says, if you will make sure you go to church and serve me on the Sabbath day. And He said, if you'll have compassion upon poor people and feed the poor when they're hungry. And when they're naked and don't have enough clothes in the wintertime or summertime, help them get some clothes. The Lord says, I will preserve you. And I will restore your health to you speedily. But see, church people's got the idea, if they're sick, they have to wire the tires off of a car trying to find some evangelist that prays for the sick. Well, that's one way. But there's a lot of different ways you could be healed. You can please the Lord, and you might as well look out. The blessing of heaven is going to fall on you if you please the Lord. And I'm going to teach you this morning how to please Him, too. And I'm going to teach you this morning about some decisions you can make to make yourself wealthy. I'm going to teach you this morning if you want to do it, you can quit your job and make more money than what you're making now. But you have to know how to do that. But I'm going to share that with you. But I worked my way up to making about $5,000 a week, and then I bought a lot of stock in the corporation. I got my home paid for, and my 4 Cadillacs paid for, and everything paid for, and my wife's minks paid for, and all the stuff that she wanted paid for. You don't have no more room left in the house, so I started storing money up in safety deposit boxes. Brother, when you make $5,000 a week, and you can buy a house for $15,000, it don't take very long to get what you want. You can pay for a house in 3 weeks. You can buy a new Cadillac every other week and pay cash for it. You see what I mean? But I worked real hard, though, building up my sales force. I worked like a Trojan, man. 7 years putting up with them flaky salesmen and trying to keep them straight, and you're trying to keep production coming in. So I bought a lot of stock of the corporation. And when I bought a lot of stock of the corporation, they voted me to the executive board. I'm in my late 20s. You know what I mean? People usually don't make the executive board when you're in late 20s. But I was the biggest producer in America. I produced so much business, and I had so many good people trained, produced so much business. Our plant manager, he would talk to, he could come before the board and said for me to please don't produce no more business. I have to cut back on production. Well, boy, I put him in his place real fast like. I said, I've worked like a dog, training 40-some salesmen. And I said, I've got them all trained now around the country. And I said, you might as well know this. I'm an executive in this company, and I own stock in this company as well as 2-3 other men owns it. And I said, I'm going to tell you right now, I am not going to fire any of my salesmen that I have trained to cut down production. I said, you're the plant manager, and you're just going to have to make up your mind. If you can't get it out in 8 hours, you're going to have to start a second shift. Do you understand me? I said, get your thinking straightened out. I said, I'm not firing no salesman. I'm not cutting down production. I intend to get more production. I said, I'm a man that wants to go forward. I said, I don't go backwards. I said, so you have to rearrange your thinking and start your second shift. You understand that? He says, oh well. You may be in your late 20s or early 30s, but when you become an executive, you have authority, brother. You know? And so you just have to let people know. You have to tell people what to do. You can't let people tell you what to do. If it's your own business, you tell people what you want done. You know, it's hard to listen to suggestions and do what you want to. Some people's always got a better idea than you. But always remember this. When somebody has got all these ideas they want to tell you, check and see what they own. If they don't own anything, always remember this. They don't know anything. Do you understand that? If you don't own anything, then you don't know anything. And so you can't listen to business ideas from somebody that can't make them work for themselves. Blessed be the name of the Lord forever. That's like going to get somebody to pray for you when you're sick, and when you go pray for them, they're sick and vomiting themselves. If I was you, I'd just leave and go find somebody else. So I was working real hard, and now I didn't know, and I saw real fast like in the world as far as the world system is concerned, and I could understand that because God says every laborer's worth his hire. If you'll be a good worker and a hard worker, and you'll be honest in your business. Now, if you're not going to be honest with your business, forget it. God will not bless your business. You might as well know that. Make sure that you're honest with your business. Keep everything straight and everything honest. And I tell you, God will bless you, and every labor is worth his hire. So if you'll go to work on time and run your business, in your business, listen to what the Lord says to you. Or anything else. He that dealeth with a slack hand will maketh to want. He that dealeth with a slack hand will maketh to want. Be on top of that thing all the time. And so that's all I knew, people, about business. This is what I've told you. I don't care if it's playing marbles. I don't care if it's playing pool. I don't care if it's business. I don't care what it is. Anything you ever become good at, you know, you have to practice and practice and practice and practice and work and work and work and work. And I was taught to do that. I was raised as a Baptist, and I was taught to do that. And God blessed it to a certain degree, because he'll bless you. You may not know this, but God will bless you in your business and make you successful if you're not even saved. A lot of Christians don't know that. Why is all these people wealthy, and they don't even go to church, and I go to church and I'm broke? Well, they're good company men. You take a fellow he may not even go to church, but if he's working for a corporation and he's a sharp guy and he knows what he's doing, and he's a company man. He's a company man. He is a company man. I can prove it to you from the Bible. Don't ever say anything against your employer. If you do, God don't like it, and he won't bless you for that. You cannot say anything against your employer. If you don't like who you're working for, don't open up your mouth and talk about him, because if you do, God will not bless that. He will curse that. He won't bless that. He'll curse it. And blessings will be withheld from you. And you can cause diseases and stuff to come upon you by your mouth. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Wealth and poverty is in the power of the tongue. Joy and sadness is in the power of the tongue. You understand that? So all through your life, this little thing here between your lips guides your life to success or defeat in every area of your life. Every area, not part of them. Every area of your life. And any kind of damage that you ever do to any human being, God oversees you and he hears you, and he will make you pay for that. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Whatever a man says out of his mouth, always remember this, whatever a man or a woman says out of his mouth will come back up on him. It'll come back up on him. Your tongue, the words you speak out of your mouth, will turn around out there next year, year after next, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. All the words you speak out there will turn around and they'll come back and haunt you. And any damage you've caused a human being or said about anybody, it'll come back up on you, and there'll be people do you the same way as you did them. You make somebody suffer through your talking and through your slashing, through your gossip. You make somebody else suffer. You'll go through the same feeling, the same suffering before you die. I guarantee you will. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So if you want God to bless your life strongly, be kind and nice to everybody and be honest to people. Don't never do it. Sometimes I don't know about Christians at all in their mouths, the way they act. I don't have any kind of a spirit in me that wants to say anything about you. I don't have any kind of a spirit in me that wants to do harm to you. I don't have any kind of a spirit like that. I don't know why Christians is born again, got the Holy Spirit in them. I don't know why they would want to talk about somebody or do damage to somebody else. I don't know why they want to do that. Because if you have any sense at all, you know that you're going to have to reap that. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. You learned that as a kid in Sunday school. I don't care if you're Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, or how you was raised. You learned that scripture in Sunday school as a little bitty kid. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And that's what life is. But I sowed hard work, and I sowed labor, and I sowed honesty, and I sowed, staying on top of my business. And when I got to be 29, my late 20s, I got voted to the executive board, making $5,000 a week. And I'm a school dropout. But I was good in sales. You see what I mean? In my sales work, I didn't have to have a lot of education. I didn't have to have 2 or 3 college degrees. I could learn how to sell, but I learned the first year. I didn't do very good the first year. Hardly nobody does in that particular business, but I learned it though. I kept learning it. But I come out of an executive meeting one night. I was having an executive meeting, and I come out of an executive meeting one night, started saying a little prayer, and all of a sudden the Spirit of God came in on me. And it's strange, the Lord came in my car, and I began to weep and weep and weep and weep. And for an hour and a half, I wept bitter tears for an hour and a half. I didn't even know that God did people that way. He wrung me out like a rag. Because, now I can tell you why I did it though. Because I was born into the world with an old-fashioned Baptist mother that shouted all the time and prayed and give us kids over to God. And now here I am. I'm living in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I've got my own stone home paid for. I've got my own 5-acre lot that my house sits on. I've got my own white fence around my house. I've got marble posts down the front. You can get in when I let you in. And I've got a long winding driveway with beautiful shrubbery. Had a man to keep it manicured just right. I had 4 Cadillacs in my driveway. And I had a beautiful girl who was so pretty she nearly take your breath. And she was nuts about me. And we'd been married for 11 years. And I had a little girl, a little blonde-headed girl, 9 years old, that looked like me. Brother. And we had a dog that was half Cocker Spaniel and a half something else. I don't know what it was. That's the friendliest little old dog you ever seen in your life. That dog loved me so much that would stand up in the window in my bedroom and watch me come up the driveway. Be standing there every day when I pulled in the driveway, and the house was about a city block from in the driveway. But as I approached, I could see that little dog standing on its hind feet in a chair, looking out the window from my car. I'd turn to go into the house. That little dog would disappear out of the window, jump down, and run at the side door when I'd come in, open up the door, and that little dog every day would run around me, eat like this right here, and take an absolutely running joy fit. Because I'm at home. He'd run through the house and run down to the basement, run back up here, and run up on top of the couch and run off. You know, it made you want to go home just to watch the dog. You know, it's something that loved you that much. Now, you men, now you say, I know exactly what O.J. Simpson's going through with. I know what O.J. Simpson's what he's going through with. I didn't even know it was possible to love a human being that much. But it is. Because it all depends on, love is built over a period of time, and it all depends on how you're treated. Love can develop strongly into you from a person. Now, this girl I'm married to, that was a Catholic, raised in Boston, and moved over to New York, that girl loved me so much that you're not ready for this. I wasn't even ready for it myself. I used to feel sorry for all men that didn't have a wife like mine. I felt sorry for them. We go see our neighbors or our friends sometime, and I'd feel sorry for him because the way his wife treated him. It wasn't that issue. She treated me so bad, but every day, after 11 years of marriage, every day when I come in from work, I'd come straight home, and that little dog would run around me. I'd go in. My wife would be dressed nice. She'd meet me at the door, kiss me 3 or 4 times, 4 or 5 times, 6, 7 times. And she would take me by the hand, hold on to me around the waist. She was 5'2", eyes were blue. And we'd walk in the living room. She bought me an easy chair in front of the TV. She'd set me down in the easy chair, push me back, kneel down in front of me and take my shoes off. Go in my room, get my house slippers and put them on. Go get me the paper, because I like to look at the sports page. Turn the TV on. Hand me the newspaper. He said, I'm going to go get dinner ready, honey. I'll call you when it's ready. You want me to help you do anything? Oh, no. You've been working hard all day. You just sit right here and enjoy yourself. I'd go in. She'd go in. When dinner's ready, she'd call me. Come in and get me. I'd go in. She'd have candle lights. My plate was here. Her plate, she'd set her plate right next to me. Our daughter's plate, she set it way over here. And she wanted to set it a little close to me. And so that's the way she was. we'd have Thanksgiving dinner with guests over, or have Thanksgiving dinner. I'd say, why don't you hire a maid to do some of your housework? Because she's a real good housekeeper. And I says, why don't you hire a maid to do some of your housework? She says, oh no. She says, no, well, I don't want no maid in here doing none of your work. I don't want no maid making up your bed. I said, well, you can get them to do the dishes and stuff like that. She says, I don't want to. She says, no, Norvel. She says, I want to do. She says, I don't want no maid. I don't want no other woman washing the plate that you eat out of. Well, I'm just a normal Tennessee guy. I'm a normal Tennessee Baptist boy. And see, things like that would scare me. I'd go, oh, brother. This is too far out, man. This is too far out. This girl's loving me too much. My God, this is getting dangerous. She refused. She don't want nobody, no maid or nothing, washing no plate that I eat out of. Normally, that plate, I'm gonna wash that. Oh, brother. After 11 years of marriage, are you kidding me? I said, my Lord in heaven, this is dangerous. And so the Lord came to me at that time of my life. The Lord came to me. No, I wasn't I wasn't a millionaire. I had my home paid for, thousands of dollars in the bank, all 4 of my Cadillacs paid for, all of our clothes paid for, and knock it off about $5,000 a week. So, but I wasn't a millionaire at that time. Now here the Lord came to me. I had my little kingdom built just like I wanted. A real pretty wife. And I went to the First Baptist Church on Sunday morning and took my family. And I just left with the First Baptist Church on Sunday morning. I like to pull my Cadillac up. First Baptist Church on a Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. Walk in with my wife. It looked like Elizabeth Taylor's sister. And she was raised in Boston, so every time she went to town, she wore a hat, gloves, high heels, hose, a suit, or a beautiful dress, and that's the way she dressed. And people all day long, I'd go to a town with their big department stores. She looked like, I'm telling you, she looked like Elizabeth Taylor's sister. People would always run up to her and look at her in the face. They'd punch, people all around her would punch all the time and look at her. Is that Elizabeth Taylor? All day long, people would stare at her. Because that's the way she dressed. Every time you go to town, she dressed that way. You know, hat, gloves, high heels, the whole thing. Well, in Boston, see, that's the way you're raised. In Tennessee, you wear blue jeans and a sports shirt with a fish on it. And Florida is worse than that. You go to church that way in Florida. But I had my little world, you see what I mean? I had my little world built just like I wanted. Dr. Pruitt was my pastor, and Dr. Dodson was my assistant pastor. I just wanted to be well off in my life. I didn't care anything about being a millionaire as far as I was concerned. I just wanted to be well off. I want to get my home paid for, my cars paid for, and everything. I want my family to live comfortably and have what they wanted. And so that's what I worked for, and that's what I got. And I didn't know that God wanted me to be wealthy. I didn't know that God wanted me to have millions and millions and millions of dollars. I didn't know that. Never heard nobody preach it. Never heard anybody talk about it. I didn't know it was in the Bible, nothing like that. But when the Lord came in my car, then He wrung me out like a rag. When I got home, she said, Norvel, what's happened to you? You look like you've seen a ghost, Norvel. Well, she had a Boston accent, so she called me like Norvel. You know, she says, I take her to the movies sometime, and I'd say, do you want something at the concession stand, honey? She'd say, yeah, she'd give me some popcorn. I said, what? She said, popcorn. I said, you mean popcorn? She said, popcorn. People raised in Boston, they announced, for C's, they announced K. She wouldn't say car, she'd say car. And so I was just so pleased. I had my little kingdom built like I wanted. When I left to go to the meeting, the executive meeting, she must have kissed me 15 times at the door when I left. If you'd have told me that my marriage would ever broken up, I'd have said, well, you're crazy as a bat. That girl loves me so much, she hurts. Ain't no way. I walked in, she says, Norvel, you look like you've seen a ghost. What's happened to you? And I said, well, you wouldn't believe it if I told you. I'm not even sure I believe it myself. And I was there. She said, what? She said, what? No. Now, I guess she told me later on she always recognized it in my life because sometimes we'd be laying in the bed and the light was out. And she'd say, Norvel, she says, get the Bible, turn your light on over your side of the bed. And she says, get the Bible. She says, and read me 2 or 3 chapters in the Bible. She says, I just love to hear you read the Bible. She says, when you read the Bible, it comes alive to me. I said, it does? She said, yeah. And I'll turn on the light, read the Bible to her. And, but when I went home, she said, you look like you've seen a ghost. I said, well, you wouldn't believe it if I told you what happened to me. She says, what happened to you, Norvel? I said, the Lord came in my life. The Lord came in my car. I said, God, I've been crying for an hour and a half. I cried for an hour and a half. I'm telling you, God wrung me out like a rag. God has delivered me from myself. I said, He wrung me out like a rag. Now, the greatest deliverance you ever go through is get delivered from yourself. You might think, well, I don't need deliverance from myself. Yeah, you do. You are your own worst enemy. The Lord God would like to keep you healed all the time, keep you healthy, make you wealthy, have you full of joy, never talk about nobody, just fill you full of joy from heaven so much you can't hardly stand it. That's what He'd like to do for you. But unless you think that way and believe that way and know that way, then He can't because you don't believe that way. That's what He has in here. But He has in that's the reason He said the first commandment, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul. And the second commandment, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. He said these 2 commandments, the whole Bible hangs on these 2 commandments. And I said, the Lord came in my car. She said, I said, the Lord came in my car, honey. I'm telling you, the Lord came in my car for an hour and a half. She says, what do you want? I said, well, He wants me. She says, wants you? So do I. Wants you? She said, what did He want you for? I said, I don't know what He wants me for. I could never figure that out. I thought God called preachers. I didn't know God called businessmen. I said, but He stayed in my car for an hour and a half, and I cried for an hour and a half. And I said, He wants me to follow Him. And I said, I'm going to follow Him. She says, what? I said, I'm going to follow Him. I have to follow Him. Because I know if I don't follow Him, I'm going to die. I've been on it for 2 or 3 years, but I've been shoving it off. Because I didn't know what you'd think about it. But I couldn't shove it off no more. Tonight it got me. It got me. I was like caught in a trap, and I cried for an hour and a half. He melted me in the floor. I mean, He just melted me, totally melted me. I couldn't stand it. She said, I'm not going to do that. She's not going to do what? She says, I'm not going to give my life to that. I said, give your life to what? She says, church people. Me, she says, Norvel, when we got married, you borrowed $20 from your grandmother. And you told me that I was crazy for marrying you because you didn't have no money at that time. But I told you that I would marry you and live with you. If I could marry you and live with you, remember me telling you this? I said, Norvel, if I could marry you and live with you, I would eat out of cans for the rest of my life. I'm not worried about what we have or what we don't have. I just love you, that's all. And that's the way it is. I've watched you come from nothing to building this thing like you've built now, and now you have all kind of money. She says, Norvel, I was happier than when we were poor. I said, why? She said, because business takes you away from me. And she says, I don't like nothing that takes you away from me. She says, I never told you before, Norvel. I never told you before, but I hate all of your employees. I said, you do? You don't act like you hate them. I said, you're nice to them. She says, well, she says, I don't like nothing that takes you away from me. Nothing. And she says, I'm not, now then this. I said, yeah, but this, the Lord wants me to come to follow him. She says, I'm not going to do that. And I don't want nothing to take you away from me. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And I said, what do you mean you're not going to do that? I said, Norvel, I believe you can make a success out of anything. She says, because you're so determined. And she says, you think that way. And she said, I don't, when you're successful, you have to do a lot of things. And I don't like for nothing to take you away from me. And she said, now then this. And she says, you may wind up in Africa under a tent because as a missionary. And she says, Norvel, I'm not the tent type. I said, true, you're not the tent type, that's for sure. And she says, I'm not the tent type. And I said, well, what are you telling me this stuff for? I said, the Lord only came to me tonight for an hour and a half. And I said, he only came to me tonight, and you've got me in Africa under a tent. I said, I'm not going to Africa under a tent. As far as I know. I said, unless he tells me. She says, well, see, you might. I said, yeah, I might. If he told me to, I would do it. She said, see there, I'm not going to do that, Norvel. I'm not going to do it. I said, well, what are you going to do? She says, I'll just get a divorce. I said, how can you get a divorce? I said, you love me. She says, yeah, but I can't do that, Norvel. I can't do that. It's not my lifestyle. I'm not going to give up my social world. I said, your social world? What is a social world? A social world is dumb. She says, well, see, she says, I don't want to give my social world. I want to live my life one time, Norvel. And I believe you're doing the right thing. You're called, Norvel. I'm not called. I said, well, you're my wife. But you know, she wouldn't do it. But I didn't believe she'd do it, but she did, though. She got a divorce. I couldn't believe she did that. But she did. I went and talked to my lawyer after she went and talked to my lawyer, and I talked to him afterwards. He said, she'll get a divorce. He said, she's determined. But he said, she loves you, though, Norvel. He said, that girl is nuts about you. She sat here in my office and cried like a baby, making plans to get a divorce from you, and cried like a baby. He said, but I've seen her type before. She will get the divorce. I can tell you right now, she'll get it. I said, you don't think she'll change her mind? He says, no. He said, no, she won't change her mind. I said, well, but he said, she's nuts about you. I said, well, I can't turn against God. So we had a little girl, 9 years old. She got the divorce, 3 months waiting period. Then the little girl wanted to live with me at 9 years old. She told her mother after the divorce, she said, I want to live with my daddy, Mommy. I want to live with my daddy, Mother. I want to live with my daddy. I want to live with my daddy. I love my daddy too much. I want to live with my daddy, Mother. So she called me up one day and says, Son won't leave me alone. She wants to live with you. I said, what do you want me to do? She said, well, she wants to take her to Tennessee and raise her. The Bible says a little child shall lead them. I'd never moved back to Cleveland, Tennessee. It hadn't been for my daughter. She wanted me to move down there where I had some cousins. So I went back home to Cleveland, Tennessee, and That little girl, 9 years old, and I had a broken heart, and so did she. And I'd been there for about 7 months. And I bought a restaurant as a side investment. You ought to look for stuff like that, men, women. I ate in this restaurant one day. Keep your eyes open all the time for success, things you can make money off of. That's good investments. I ate in a townhouse restaurant all the time, not every day, but a lot of days. There's a girl in there, she waited on me a lot of times. She says, I paid my bill one day. She said, Mr. Hayes, why don't you buy this restaurant? I said, what for? She said, well, the man that he's the owner of it, he wants to sell it real bad. If you'll buy it, I'll manage it for you. I said, I don't want to buy no restaurant. I said, I'm too busy. She says, well, you ought to talk to him. She said, he wants to sell it real bad. She said, I'll manage it for you. I said, well, I'll talk to him. And I said, all right, call me when he comes in. I said, about 2 o'clock they called, and I went over and talked to him. He said, Mr. Hayes, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I have 2 sons that lives in Atlanta, Georgia. And he says, my wife divorced me 4 years ago, and I haven't been worth 15 cents since that time. He said, I drank whiskey and run around with women in Atlanta, Georgia, and so I thought I'd come up here to a small town and get out of that Atlanta, Georgia atmosphere. Come up here to Cleveland, Tennessee, and I found out there's just as many wild women as in Cleveland, Tennessee as there is in Atlanta, Georgia. You can buy whiskey here as the same as you can in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's all I do is run around with women and drink whiskey. Because I'm so lonely. I'm just so lonely. I've got 2 grown sons that loves me. And they have their own business in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been here now for several months, and he said, I still just do the same thing. He said, I'm killing myself running around with women and drinking whiskey. My sons told me, he says, Daddy, you sell that restaurant and move back to Atlanta, Georgia so we can take care of you. He said, so I'm going to sell it. He said, I want to sell it real bad. I said, what do you mean sell it real bad? He says, well, I've got a stock room downstairs full of stock, got a lot of stock in the stock room. All this equipment in the restaurant. And he said, you see what kind of business I have here. He started staffed. He started got everything in here. He said, you got any cash money? And I says, well, some. He says, right now, I got the keys to the restaurant. Give me $6,000 and I'll walk out of this restaurant right now. I said, well, I don't even want to buy it. But I said, you just sold it. So I paid him $6,000 cash. He gave me the keys and walked off. Signed the deed. I kept that restaurant for 25 years. That thing made me nothing except money for 25 years. 25 years. A $6,000 investment. And sometimes I'd make that much in 2 weeks. Sometimes a big convention would come to town and make that much in 2 weeks. $6,000 investment. And I made nothing. I made thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars off of that one restaurant. Just an investment. I'd keep people in there all the time, you know. I'd let them manage it sometimes. Sometimes I'd lease it to them. They pay me so much every week, you know. They keep the rest and so forth. You know, you just have to work out a good business arrangement. And now that was my first investment on the side besides the engraving company that I was involved in. And we distributed merchandise to colleges. Now, because I bought that restaurant, now listen to me real close. It's all in the plan of God for success. Now listen to me real close. About the second week that I bought the restaurant, maybe the first week, just a few days, one of the waitresses, I was in there one day, and one of the waitresses comes and says, Mr. Hayes, there's a minister over here, and now you remember I'm a Baptist, with the Baptist church. There's a minister over here that wants to talk to you. So I'll go over, I'd say, my name is Mr. Hayes. So, well, my name is Reverend so-and-so. He says, can I talk to you for a minute, Mr. Hayes? And I said, sure. So we sat on the booth, and he says, this restaurant has been sponsoring a radio broadcast. I've been on radio here for years, and it cost, I think, $15. In those days, it cost like $15 per program. He said, this restaurant sponsors one program a week, and we just mentioned your restaurant at the beginning of the broadcast, at the end of the broadcast. This broadcast was sponsored by the Townhouse Restaurant. This broadcast is coming to you from Faith Memorial Church, sponsored by the Townhouse Restaurant, downtown Cleveland, Tennessee. At the end of it, this program was sponsored by the Townhouse Restaurant in Cleveland, Tennessee, that serves good food. Go visit them. And that's what we do. And he says, you being the new owner, I just wanted to know if you wanted to keep sponsoring one day a week. Now, while he's talking to me, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, the Spirit of God said to me, I want you to talk to him. I said, I don't know what kind of a preacher he is. I never saw him before in my life. I said, Reverend, I said, my office is across the street in the office building. I said, can I talk to you for a little while? He says, yeah, sure. I said, let's step across the street to my office. He said, okay. So we walked across the street to my office. I sat him down. We sat down in the chairs in my office. I told him a story about like I told you, maybe more in detail to him. I says, now, I pray, and I says, the Lord comes and visits me 2 or 3 times a week and gives me blessings. I said, I attend Baptist churches, and I said, God blesses me in the Baptist churches. I said, he wants something out of my life. I don't know what he wants to do for me. I said, do you have any idea what God might want to do with me? He said, no, I don't know, Mr. Hayes, what God wants to do with you. Now listen to me real close. He says, but I can tell you how to find out. Oh, I said, you can? He said, oh, yeah, I can tell. He said, I can tell anybody how to get in the will of God for their life. Anybody. I said, you can? He said, yeah. He says, I'm a Pentecostal preacher myself. I said, well, what is that? What does that mean, Pentecostal preacher? He says, well, it means that we believe in the same thing you believe in, only we believe more. I said, what do you mean more? Well, he said, we believe that Jesus heals people. I said, he didn't heal my mother. She died at 37 with cancer. He didn't heal my brother. He died at 18, football player in high school, and we went to the Baptist church all the time. He didn't heal them. You mean God heals some people and some people he don't? He didn't heal them. Well, he says, we believe in healing. I said, well, how do you know he's going to heal people? I said, if you go to church. And he didn't heal my mother, and he didn't heal my brother. So does he heal people some days and some days he don't? He says, no. So well, we've got to heal everybody. And we believe in the baptism of the Holy Spirit and receiving power from on high. I said, well, I believe in receiving all the power you can get. That's all I knew, you know. And he said, well, I can tell you how to find out the will of God for your life. I said, how? He said, Mr. Hayes, if you start doing the little things, God will promote you and let you do big things. I said, I don't want no promotions. I said, I'm already an executive. I'm not looking for promotions. I'm looking to get in the will of God for my life. You know what I mean? I want the will of God for my life. I want to do what Jesus wants me to do. He said, well, if you'll start doing the little things, then God will start, when he can trust you in that, he'll start talking to you and telling you bigger things to do if he can ever trust you to be faithful in the little things. I said, Pastor, what is little things? He said, did you ever feed the poor, Mr. Hayes? I said, no. I said, I go to the First Baptist Church. I don't feed the poor. He says, did you ever help put on high school assemblies? Help high school kids, teach high school kids to love their parents and be good citizens and stay off of whiskey and stay off of drugs? I said, no, I never did. He said, well, somebody your age, he said, they'd listen to you real good. Like, did you ever help little poor children, little homeless children, or little poor children needs help? I says, no, I never do that. I said, do you do all these things? He says, yeah. I do them. I said, well, I said, I don't know how to do those things. How do you feed poor people? I says, do you buy food and put it in your car and go around and try to find somebody's house? I said, they look like they're poor here. And you walk up to the house and knock on the door and say, they come to the door and they say, are you poor? How can you find poor people? I said, I used to know a wealthy man that drove an 8-mile car and wore overalls. And he was wealthy. I said, you can't judge a man by his car. You can't judge a man by the way he's dressed, that's for sure. That's how you tell somebody's poor or not. He said, well, I know where they all live at here in town. I've been working with them for years. I said, well, I don't know what to do. I says, can I work with you? Can I go with you and follow you and learn how? He says, sure, you can. So I started working with him, training me how to feed the poor and how to help people over to the city dump and things like that, you know. I worked with him for 7 years. When I started working with him, we had one school bus that went out on a Sunday and full of poor kids and brought them to church. I worked with him for 7 years. At the end of the 7 years, we had 8 school buses full of kids. Now, his church only holds about 350 people, something like that, 350 people. And we had the church full of little poor kids. The adults had no place to sit. I mean, 8 school buses full of them. So we had to build another church beside the main sanctuary called the Little People's Church. So, and put a pastor over them, we had to have a poor kids pastor, a youth pastor. We had 8 school buses full of them. And so at the end of the seventh year, the Lord moved up on me and told me, he said, now, during that 7 years, we had a coffee house downtown, right down the middle of town, in a ballroom at a hotel. We released the ballroom for a year at a time. And every Thursday night, we had a coffee house. Every Thursday afternoon, the ladies would go down and decorate it like a coffee house. Then we had have a coffee house from 7 o'clock to 11, 4 hours. Every Thursday night for the youth, where we won street kids to the Lord. We had 30 minutes of music and 30 minutes of rap. 30 minutes of music, 30 minutes of rap. 30 minutes of music, 30 minutes of rap. And they sit around and talk to them, you know what I mean? You put 2 Christian kids with 1 street kid. You have to learn how to do that. So I worked in that for 7 years. And I'd help feed the poor and work with them for 7 years. Now the Lord says, I want you to teach my people what I've taught you. Now, I didn't even know that God did these things. You understand me? During that 7 years, I began to work with a woman who would come in my restaurant, and she was single and she was dating a married man. Some of his children used to work for me. He had about 4 or 5 children. I worked with her for 8 years, and I finally got her saved. After I got her saved, she made a phone call to me one day that made me about $250,000. And I said, oh my God. I said, Jesus, I didn't even know that God did things like that. I says, how come you blessed me with $250,000 this morning, and I don't need it? How come you blessed me with that? He says, well, you passed my test. I said, passed your test? I said, God, what is your test? He said, my test is 3 John, the 2nd verse. He says, beloved, I wish above all things that you'd prosper and be in health. Now, that's just words to your head. But let me quote it a few times to you. God says, beloved, I wish above all things that you'd prosper and be in health, even as thy soul will prosper. 3 John, the 2nd verse says, not the 3rd chapter of John, but 3 John, the 3rd epistle of John, the 2nd verse, God says, beloved, and you are God's beloved. You're God's beloved. Beloved, I wish above all things, now this is all things in your life, I wish above all things that you'd prosper, or be wealthy, or be rich. God says, I wish above all things that you'd prosper and be in health, even as your soul will prosper. He said, that is my test, and you passed that. I said, what do you mean I passed that? That's how come to give you this $250,000 this morning. You not work one day because you passed that test. I said, what do you mean I passed that test? Well, who made the phone call to you to make you the $250,000? Who made the phone call to you? I said, phone call. I said, that woman did. Oh, that woman. He said, uh-huh. And you worked with her for 8 years when she was single, dating a married man in public in a small town, and you worked with her for 8 years, you finally got her saved. You know, I passed that test. Well, who made the phone call to you to make you the $250,000? Who made the phone call to you? I said, phone call. I said, that woman did. Oh, that woman. He said, uh-huh. And you worked with her for 8 years when she was single, dating a married man in public in a small town, and you worked with her for 8 years, you finally got her saved. All the other ministers that worked with her, they worked with her for 2 or 3 months. And she wouldn't obey them. They'd say, well, do your own thing. I'm washing my hands of you. He said, you didn't wash your hands with her. You just kept on telling her about me and telling her about heaven. Telling her about me, and I loved her, and telling her about heaven. It took me 5 years to get her in church. I got her in church after 5 years, and she'd go to the altar. I'd get her to come to the altar, and she'd ask God to save her. She'd beg God to save her. After a while, she'd begin to beg God to save her. She'd, please save me, Jesus. Please save me, Jesus. Please save me, Jesus. I want to go to heaven. Please save me, Jesus. I'd talk to her about how heaven, beautiful heaven must be. How beautiful heaven must be. I'd talk to her about how beautiful heaven was and everything. And she'd beg God to save her. He never would save her. And I went to prayer one day and I said, God, why don't you save this poor soul? I said, I've worked with her for 5 years, and I've got her on an altar now. And that's as far as I can take her as the altar. The rest of it's up to you. I said, Jesus, why don't you save her? Please, Lord, save her. He said, I can't save her. I said, God, please, don't tell me that. I said, you're God and you can do anything. He says, no, I can't. I can't save her. I said, Jesus, she begs you to save her. I'm telling you the woman wants to go to heaven. I'm telling you the woman wants to be saved. And you won't save her. She begs you to save her. She begs you out loud. Jesus, please save me. Jesus, please, I want to go to heaven. Please save me. And I said, you won't save her. I said, why don't you save her? Why don't you save her and forgive her? He said, I can't save her. I said, she wants to come to heaven, Jesus. She wants to come. I'm not that stupid. She wants to come to heaven. He said, true, son, she wants to come to heaven. She wants me, and she wants to come to heaven. And she wants her lover. She can't have heaven and me and her lover.
Amen. God.
Now, if you'll talk to her and give her to give up her lover, I'll save her, and she can come to heaven. I'll forgive her of everything she's ever done. Just like that. And she can come to heaven. So it took me 3 more years to talk her into giving up her lover. But she finally did. And one night she got gloriously saved after 8 years of labor. And the Lord said, your soul prospered, son. She made a phone call to you that made you $250,000. That's the way it works. Amen. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. You sow labor trying to save a person's life. If you get the job done when they save me, he says, there'll be a blessing to you for the rest of your life. I said, oh my God, Jesus. Now, when I proved to the Lord by working this ministry, when I proved to him that I love young people, work in a coffee house on Thursday night for like 7 years, you have to prove to the Lord. When I proved to the Lord that I would work, and I didn't receive one offering in 7 years, when I proved to the Lord that I would go out and in my job and I'd do my work, I'd take some of my money and invest it in a coffee house and give money to the church and give money to buy food for the poor. When I proved to the Lord that I would do it, and he watched me for 7 years. Everybody say 7 years. He watched me for 7 years, and then he gave me a test, which most people don't pass it when he gives them one. He gave me a test. Moved up on me about January, I guess it was, in my office one day, openly, and I began to weep. My secretary sitting over here. I got up out of my desk after a while, and he told me what we were doing. I stumbled over to her desk, and I'm crying. I said, Mary Lou, I said, the Lord just moved up on me in my office over there. And I said, you know what he told me? She says, what, Mr. Hayes? I says, he told me that he wants me to go to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He told me, he says, I don't want you to go to church on Easter Sunday with your relatives and wear new clothes, and all of you go out to dinner together and sit around and talk for 3 hours about a whole bunch of nothing. He said, son, you've proved to me that you care and you will labor for young souls. He said, I want you to go to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Easter week, and I want you to pass out tracts. There'll be college students as far as your eye can reach, hundreds of thousands of them. They'll be committing sex in the sand. They'll be overdosing on drugs and dying. Some of them will be so drunk they'll jump out the hotel windows and kill themselves. Many hotels in Fort Lauderdale have bars around the high floors, the windows, so that drunken students at spring break don't jump out the window. Lots of them jumps out the window and kills themselves. Whiskey will drive you crazy, you know. Especially when you stay drunk for a week. And many students on the spring break will stay drunk for a week. I was down Daytona Beach here a while back in spring break. I got on the elevator one night, and I believe there was 8 students got on the elevator with me, and every one of them, boys and girls both, every one of them was dog drunk. What do you mean by that? Where are you from? Just as drunk, loose as a goose, don't a bit more know what they're at. You could have had sex with one of them right there on the floor if you wanted to. They don't even know what they're doing. They're so drunk they don't know what they're doing. You could have said, you want to have sex? And said, why not? Why not? Are you a good lover, huh? I guess the sloppiest thing in the world is a drunk. They'll do anything. They don't even know what they're doing. Their mind's gone. They don't know what they're doing. So I went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, this is the first time God ever told me this. On the way there, He told me I was in His perfect will to go on that trip. Coming back home after walking the beaches, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for a week, the Lord manifested Himself to me out in the country and said one word to me, property. I passed a piece of property. I wound up buying, I started crying in the car, and I wound up buying, made about $800,000 off of it. I said, oh my God. And didn't work one day. Didn't work one day for it. Above all things, I want you to prosper and be in health, even as your soul prosper. I said, Jesus, are you telling me if my soul prospers, you pay off in money? This is only going to go over in church. So what the average congregation thinks, if you get up and tell them, say, if your soul prospers, God will pay off in money. Well, he said, that's only half of that's a half truth. He said, look down there again. He said, I said, beloved, I wish above all things that you'd be in health, and that you should prosper and be in health, even as your soul prosper. When your soul prospers, son, he said, I pay off in money and health. I pay off in wealth and health when your soul prospers. When your soul prospers, from heaven you receive money and you receive health when your soul prospers. I said, is that right? He said, yes, it's a life of pleasure. 3 John, the 2nd verse, you'll find that. Even as your soul prospers. Son, don't worry too much about your health and don't worry too much about money. He said, just make sure every day, every week, every month, make sure your soul prospers. Help street kids in the coffee house. Help feed the poor. Help little poor kids get on the school bus and come to church every Sunday morning. Help old people. Help professional businessmen. Make sure your soul is prospering and wealth will be yours. He says, wealth and health follows a soul that prospers. I said, wealth and health follows a soul that prospers. Don't be concerned about health too much or even about wealth too much. He says, just make sure that your soul prospers. Beloved, I wish above all things that you'd be wealthy and that you'd be healthy. And God says, and you can have these two, I promise them to you, on the same level as your soul prospering.
Amen.
You say, Brother Norvel, I don't ever help nobody. Well, no wonder you're broke. You'll be broke next time I see you. That is not the way you get it. Your soul is not prospering. I go to church, Norvel. Rats go to church. When your soul prospers, you have to work for nothing. You don't want no money for it. If you get money for it, it don't count. If you get paid for it. Volunteer your time. Volunteer your time to Randy. Volunteer your time to the church. Volunteer your time to the poor people. Volunteer. Do anything for the house of the Lord. Do anything. I don't care what it is. Just do something. Do something for God. Do something for God. Volunteer yourself to do something for God. Boy, He'll pay you better than anybody you ever met in your life. I'm telling you. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Then He moved up on me when I come along that line. Now listen real close. And He watched me how I handled the money. If you don't handle the money right, He won't be manifesting Himself no more and tell you anything. Now see, you're just like me. You only know some things. Very few things. But you have a God, if you're born again. You have a person that lives in your belly called the Holy Spirit, and He knows everything. He knows everything. I don't know everything. Are you kidding me? I don't know everything. I don't even know sometimes good business things. But He always has in the back of His mind of your soul prospering. He made me over $1 million some time ago. I started fishing one morning. He wanted me to buy a motel and not go fishing. So I don't want you to go fishing today. I want you to buy a motel. I said, buy a motel? I don't want to buy no motel, Jesus. Please, let me go fishing. I want to go fishing. I don't want to buy no motel. And he showed me which motel he wanted me to buy. A little bitty teeny motel. Had about 17 rooms. Ugliest thing I ever seen. I said, I don't want to buy that, Jesus. It's too ugly. But it's sitting on 5 acres of property on Highway 19. Down in Florida. Highway 19 between Tallahassee and St. Pete. On Highway 19. I said, Lord, I don't want to buy that motel. Please, Jesus, let me go fishing. I don't want you to go fishing. I want you to buy that motel. So he started moving up on me, and I broke, and I started crying and weeping and weeping and weeping. And I kept on crying. Finally, I said, Jesus, why don't you get somebody else to buy that motel? What do you want me to buy that motel for, Jesus? It's too ugly. I don't even want it. I said, what do you want me to buy it for? What do you want me to buy it for? He said, son, There's over 15,000 old people that live next to that motel. He said, I want you to minister to them. I said, Jesus, I don't have no burden for those old people that live next to the motel. I don't even know who they are. They're from New York and Boston and Philadelphia. And I said, I don't have no special burden for them. I don't even know who they are, Jesus. I love you and I want to do your work, but I don't even know who they are. And I said, I don't have any special burden for them. He says, you love me, don't you? I said, yeah. He says, well, he says, I love them. He said, would you do it for me? Then he said to me, he said, son, they've come down south from the north to die in the sunshine. And he said, they've never been taught up north about me very much. Some of them know me, but most of them don't know me. And they live their last days by playing golf as long as they can walk. And he said, then they play shuffleboard when they can't walk very much. Then you go to senior citizens dances. He says, and they play dominoes. And they play bingo. And he says, and they drink cocktails. They sit around the pool and tell dirty jokes. And drink cocktails and curse me, curse God, use my name in vain, and die. And lots of them are dying. And if you go tell them about me, there's over 15,000 of them that lives next to that motel, and you could go tell them about me. Bring workers into that little motel and feed them and knock on all the doors, every condo, every house, every trailer around. And I saw a light come like this, brown out from the ocean, like this right here, in this circle right here. I'm putting you responsible for this circle right here. I said, oh God, Jesus, help me. And so I said, okay, Lord. He said, I know you don't know them, you don't have any special love for them. He says, but I do. I love them, and I don't want them to go to hell. Then he asked me, and I'm sobbing in the car, and he asked me one question. He said, would you do it for me? Do you love me, son? I said, yeah, I love you. He said, wouldn't you do it for me? I said, yeah, I'll do it for you, Jesus. I will do it for you. So I went and I said, how much you take for the motel? They said, $95,000. It's for sale. $95,000. I said, no. God. They said, it's so ugly. I'll give you $75,000. No, I'll be back tomorrow to see. Next day I'll go back. Okay. I said, God, please help me with this thing. So the next day he says, you know, Mr. Hayes, the owner knows you. He knows you. He's heard of you. We told him that you asked about the motel, that you wanted to buy the motel. He said, okay, if Mr. Hayes wants to buy this little motel, he says, I'm getting old, I don't need it, and I want to sell it. He said, tell him I'll sell it to him for $90,000. He'd give me $20,000 down. Now listen to me real close. You can do this yourself. $20,000 down, and he says, I'll finance it myself. I don't have to pay no bank charges to finance it, no closing costs. I'll finance it myself, have a real estate contract, and have a real estate contract notarized and registered at the courthouse. And I'll finance it for 10 years at a low interest rate. And he gives me $20,000 down. And then and tell him, I said, I'm old, and he knows I'm pretty old. He says, tell him I'm old, and tell him that I want him to give me $7,000 a year for 10 years, plus the interest each year, and it'll be paid for. And they told me that. I says, okay. So I wrote him a check for $20,000. They gave me the keys to the motel. Had 13 little bitty rooms, pink ceilings and green walls. Ugliest things I've ever seen. So I had a painted man to go in and paint an eggshell color, all the walls and ceilings, same color, eggshell color, so people wouldn't get drunk when they go in there. It was such a dump. They rented the rooms out for $7 a night. And sometimes they rent them 3 or 4 times a day. $7 a night. Give me a break. So I bought that thing. On Highway 19, we hauled, I believe it was 16, 17 truckloads of trash off the grounds. 17 truckloads of trash, old tires, all kind of junk off the grounds. We took a yard rake and raked the grounds. Made it look like a different place. Painted the place. Got some decent bedspreads and clean sheets. And I started renting the rooms out. And I'd call workers and let them stay there. And we'd knock on doors and I'd feed them all for free. And we'd work that territory around there. Now, while we're winning these souls and rescuing some of these souls, they come along after a few years, they come along and build a shopping center next to it. The man knocked on my door and says, I opened the door and he says, real sharp guy. He said, I'm from the Presbyterian church up the street here, Mr. Hayes. He says, but I've been reading your books and I got spirit filled. And I said, you did? He said, yeah, I'm in the real estate business. He said, they're going to build a shopping center beside your little motel. He said, let me ask you a question. He said, would you give me all over $1,700,000 I could sell that motel for? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I've got 4 businessmen who want to buy that motel. He says, but now, I want to tell you, Mr. Hayes, I wouldn't lie to you because I got baptized in the Holy Spirit under your books and tapes and stuff. And you've been a blessing to my life, and I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to lie to nobody, but I don't want to misinform you. Whoever buys your motel, when they get the shopping center finished, if they buy it for $1,700,000, they'll make a big chunk off of it themselves. I says, well, it's paid for, so why don't I just make the $1,700,000 plus the chunk? He said, oh, good thinking. I said, uh-huh. I didn't go to school just to eat my lunch. Tell you how smart I am, I told God I didn't even want it. See? I bet you thought I had a little sense. No, God has the sense. And just kept on and on. And now then, this is the part I want to get to for you. And now see, I didn't even know God did things like that. Now here it is. Here he come along here and he made me $3 or $4 million just because I passed out tracts on Daytona Beach, working with a woman that's living in adultery, helping coffee house for 7 years, working with little poor kids. Now then, knocking on these doors. So Jesus told me, he said, if you'll buy that motel, I can talk you into knocking on those doors. I said, yeah, that's right, you sure can. That's what you want me to buy it. If you don't have any vision for souls going to hell, then he would move up on you. Now here he's come along, just because I'm working for him, he's come along and he's made me $3 or $4 million just for this. I started around the world one time with my daughter on a pleasure trip, and I got as far as Honolulu. I scheduled to speak there at a convention, and I did. Tongues came forth one night, loud and strong, and the Lord asked me not to go, stay on the islands and minister. I stayed on the islands and ministered. I cut my trip off right there and stayed there for nearly 3 weeks and ministered in churches and prisons and things. Now I'm on a trip. We're going to leave on Sunday and go to Tokyo. But the Holy Ghost flagged me down, told me to stay over there and minister. I stayed there and ministered, and now then, I just stayed there and ministered. And I wasn't looking for nothing. People just come up to me and wanted us to do this. Now then, in Waikiki Beach, I own 5 condos in Waikiki Beach. I have owned as much as 10 or 12 and sell them off. Sometimes I bought 2 condos one time there for $50,000 a piece and sold them for $300,000 to the Japanese. I made $100,000 off each condo, and it didn't cost me about $50,000 to begin with. So because I obeyed the Holy Ghost and stayed there and ministered in prisons and churches in Honolulu and in the different islands there, the Lord has made me over $1 million there. Now I figured out the other day, these 5 condos I've got, I could sell them right now and make another $1 million profit off of them. You see what I mean? I didn't set out to become a millionaire. And now then, I must be worth 8 or 10 million. And I didn't even try. I just put the work of the Lord first. And now then, it starts accumulating, see. You have $100,000 in this bank, $100,000 in this bank, because the government only guarantees you $100,000. If you have more than that and it goes broke, you lose it. And $100,000 in this bank, and $100,000 in this bank, and $100,000 in this bank, and $100,000 in whatever you have. I'm sitting in my house down Crystal River, Florida, in my living room, like in the middle of the afternoon, and the Spirit of God moved it on me. And it said about 2.5 years ago, it said, "Don't be stupid, son. Your money in the bank is making 2%. This is right at the end of the Bush area. He let it go down to 2% on CDs. Well, I had a bunch of CDs. I had a whole bunch of CDs that was making 8. But they were running out fast, you know. And now they're making 2. I remember I had, I don't know, I think it was $128,000 in one bank. And I walked up to him and says, "You're not paying me very much interest in this money. How much money am I making? How much am I making on this right here?" Because I have a financial consultant and a man that takes care of all of my money. He gives me a report every week of all the different things that I own. I like to drive the IRS crazy because they think that I'm the head of the mafia. When they investigated me, they said, well, I never saw a guy before. He said, "Mr. Hayes, do you realize you have 72 bank accounts?" I said, "Yeah, probably." I didn't know it was that many. I thought maybe it might be 30 or 40 or 50. I don't know how many it was. He said, "You have 72 bank accounts." I said, "Well, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord." I said, "Don't bother me one way or the other. I don't handle it no way." So I have a man that oversees it and handles it for me, you know. And the Lord moved it on me and said, I want to show you how to make $1 million, son. With the money that's lying dormant making 2% you have in the bank. Don't be stupid, son. Put the money to work. Build single dwelling homes. Small single dwelling homes. And rent them out. And you'll make $1 million real fast. So I built 4 single dwelling homes, 2 bedrooms and a couple of baths, 1-car garage. I built them for like $37,000 a piece, about 1,200 square feet. And I built 4. Now they're rented out. Now I'm thinking about it very seriously about this next week, going down and building 10 more. Because I figured it out. Just these 4 that I've built, and I'm making about 15% return on my money. 15%. You understand that? 15% return on your $1 million is pretty good money. You see what I mean? In a year's time, that's $150,000, isn't it? And just on $1 million, that's $150,000 profit on $1 million. Well, I mean, I could invest $1 million. $150,000 profit. I'm just a plain Tennessee boy. I could live on $20,000 or $30,000 a year. I'm not a spendthrift. I don't throw money away. I watch every dollar I spend. That's the reason my ministry is not in the red. Don't have no trouble. Because I don't throw away money. I don't throw away money. Brother, you said they checked to my office for the unwed mother's home, and it goes in there in the account to buy food with. I don't take some of it out. And we don't take this out and take that out. It goes directly in that account. You send a check to my office for abused women and abused children, that's where it goes to. I have a home for backslidden ministers.
Amen.
That nobody don't care about. People just want to talk about them all the time. But you have to understand this. Ministers live in a fleshly body. If they backslide, they need for you to pray for them real bad. It's awful. I feel so sorry for O.J. Simpson. I can't hardly stand it. I can understand why O.J. loved Nicola as much as he did. My wife loved me that much. Sometimes people love us too much. But I'd like to say to you that don't never let yourself fall in love with somebody that much. When it comes to the gospel is concerned, I can understand now. If I'd have stayed married to my wife, she didn't want me to do this. You know what I mean? She didn't want me to do it. But the Lord tried to get her to follow Him. 3 different times while we were separated. He moved up on her supernaturally. Tried to get her to follow Him, and she wouldn't do it. Now then, if you have a pencil and paper, I want you to take this down. I had a friend that wasn't really successful financially. Nice fellow, but he wasn't really successful financially. And so he just went down and talked to the bank. He said, I want to build 25 buildings. I want to build 4 apartments in each building. I want all of my buildings brick. Sturdy. They'll be there, beautiful. 100 years from now, they'll look good. I want to put strong material in them. And I want to build them really out of quality stuff. I want to build a square building with a nice roof on it and everything, but I want 4 condos in each building. 2 bedrooms and 1 bath in each building. You only built 1 bath. Washer and dryer hookup. I want to build 25 buildings which will give me 100 units. I want to build 25 individual buildings. What will you loan me to build these buildings? Well, we'll loan you $2.5 million. 25 brick buildings. Okay. He built the buildings for $25,000. He built the buildings for 25 buildings. He built the buildings for about maybe $200,000 less than what he borrowed. Under $100,000. He started renting them out. Now listen real close. About 18 years ago, 17 years ago, he started renting them out. At that time, they were written out for $3 something. Now they're $5.50. This is in Ohio. He had them financed for a long time, like 35 years. And he had thousands of dollars extra left over every month. And in the period of 17 years, he had them paid down to millions of dollars. Now then, his payments is $25,000 a month. Now he's collecting about $52,000 a month off of the rent. Now a bank pushed him the other day, and the bank says, now the interest has gone down. No use in you paying that high interest. Let us finance these for you. We will finance those units that you've got, those brick units you've got. We will finance those. And your payments won't be any more. $25,000 a month. You're collecting $52,000 a month now. There won't be any more. and we'll give you a check for $700,000. We'll give you a check right now for $700,000, and your payments will not be any more. He stays full all the time, 100% full all the time. Because the buildings are so pretty, and the grounds are pretty, and just neat-looking places, you know what I mean? One nice-looking brick building with four condos in it, and rents them out just like that. He has an office there, only has one girl. That's all he has to pay, just one girl. And I think that's part-time. And so he says, I said, well, are you going to do it? He said, oh, yeah, I'm going to do it. He said, you know why I'm going to do it, Norvel? He said, oh, sure, I'm going to do it. He says, well, I'm making, let's see, 25, 35, 45, 50. I'm making about $27,000 a month profit off of them right now. After I make my payment. My payment is $25,000 a month. But I'm collecting, off of the 100 units, I'm collecting now about $52,000 a month. So I've got $27,000 left over every month. So I've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in my savings account just off of that. But now that the bank don't want to increase my payments, they want to cut the rate, interest rate way down, and refinance them and give me a check because I only owe like $1,300,000 on them, and they want to give me a check. They want to finance them for $2 million. And they want to give me a check for $700,000 cash. Now listen closely. And see, when you do it this way, when you go in and borrow $700,000 on your units, you have to pay no income tax on borrowed money. No income tax on borrowed money. Do you understand that? No income tax. So here's a guy, got $27,000 a month coming in every month. Everybody pays their own light bill. He just has to pay some insurance. $27,000 a month coming in. I mean, give me a break, people. That's like over $300,000 a year. Profit for his pocket. Plus, he just had them refinanced, and they gave him a check for $700,000, which was non-taxable. Now there he is, 17 years. He had nothing. And now that he's got over $1 million cash in the bank, plus receiving $27,000 every month, every month, every month, every month, every 30 days, $27,000. You see what I mean? But you don't have to go big like that. You can go smaller on the same level. But are you getting it? Are you getting it? You see what I mean? Now, if you use your head like that and get that to step out and do it on a small level to begin with if you want to, that's all right. But you can do it. You don't have to worry about it because they'll pay for themselves. You don't have to worry about going broke with this. You don't have to worry about going broke because you can rent them out and they'll pay for themselves with money left over, I'm telling you. Have them finance for 25, 30, 35 years, 30 years. They'll finance them for you. Make your payments about a half what your rent is. You understand that? I know a school teacher that built 30 apartments, I believe it was, and he was making so much money off of his extra money, he quit because he was making more money than he was teaching school. The money had left over. But you can do this and get it all straightened out and have that extra money coming in, get them all 5 rented, just as small units, get them all 5 rented, and then start doing it again. Now then, I've got a contractor in Cleveland, Tennessee, that's going to build me duplexes for $51,000, brick duplexes. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Washer and dryer hookup. 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. About, I don't know, 850 square feet, something like that for each apartment, for each duplex, for each unit, I mean. And I'm going to build them, this is lock and key job, brick buildings. $51,000 for that. The contractor will build me a lock and key job, $51,000. I'm going to let him build me 10 of them. I can build 10 of them for $500,000, approximately. You understand? That'll give me 20 units. I can rent those units out in Cleveland, Tennessee. I can rent those out in Cleveland, Tennessee for $450. So that'll give me 20 of them. That'll give me about $8,000 some dollars every month. You see what I mean? Well, I'm paying cash for them. But if you can't pay cash for them, then make your payments about $5,000 a month. So you'll have finance them for 30 years or 35 years. Because they're going to be there forever, you know what I mean? And there'll be more people coming on the earth all the time, so don't worry about renting them out. The rent will go up every year. Now, my friend in Ohio, let me present it to you. He built his units for, I don't know, under 100,000 or close to 100,000, the brick building with 4 units in it when he built them. And now then, those same brick buildings with the 4 units is worth $185,000 apiece. They've nearly doubled in price. Nearly doubled in price. If he sold all of his units now, he could make, look what he could make off of them. $100,000. He could make nearly $100,000 off of each unit, off of each building, and he has 10 buildings. He has 25 buildings. If he sold those units right now, he makes $27,000 a month profit. But if he sold his units right now, he could make over $2 million profit just selling the units. See what I mean? It's called you can't lose for winning. Now listen real close. In the book of Job, chapter 36, verse 11, the most important thing in the world to you is serve the Lord. And this fellow did that as a Christian spirit-filled man. Okay? If you obey and serve the Lord, let your soul prosper first, then things begins to happen to you if you're open to it. You see something, step out and do it. Be real conservative, but step out and do it. Oversee it. Get them all rented out. And get somebody to rent them out for you if you want to. If you don't have time to fool with it, you don't want to, if you fool with it yourself, like Milton says, you can make a lot more, you make more money, but if you don't want to fool with it, you can get real estate companies and people will rent them all out for you, take care of them for you, everything for 10%. So if you have to go that route, you won't make as much money. Because I got a real estate company that takes you all my condos in Waikiki for 10%. I've got one condo I bought at the Ilikai Hotel down on the beach at Waikiki, 2-bedroom and 2 baths. I paid $385,000 cash for it. It's worth about $800,000. Now, I've got another one in that same building. I paid $90,000 for it. It's worth $300,000. All right. Now notice Job chapter 36, verse 11. Now all that. When you start getting all those figures about building 100 units and building this or 5 units or just small or 1 house or 2 houses or whatever, but you can't get all hung up in that where people make a mistake and forget about God and forget about the poor person and forget about the lost person, forget about the church work. No, you can't do that. God says in verse 11 right here, 36th chapter, if they obey and serve Him, they shall spend their days in prosperity and their years in pleasures. You understand that? But if they obey not, the 12th verse says, if they obey not, they shall perish with the sword, and they shall die without knowledge. Do you know why that Milton here, standing here, this boy graduated from the University of Alabama, you know why he can build those units for $10,000 or $12,000 apiece? It's because he can oversee them himself. His daddy can buy all the material wholesale, plus other places, you know, you buy material. You buy good quality material, but get it at a good price. You understand? And you do it all yourself. Like me, I have to pay top dollar because I don't have time to fool with that. But if you have time, it's amazing what you can build for, the low price you can build for, if you know what you're doing. Or if you have a carpenter that will help you what you're doing. All right? You see that? Have you received any help this morning? All right, now bow your heads, please. There's one more bridge you have to cross. You just have to cross that bridge, that's all. People lives and dies and never crosses it. And they wonder why they don't get blessed. Well, Roberts told me one time, he says, Norvel, he gave Ken Copeland a plan, cost $4 million. And I said, Oral, Ken was really joyful when he gave him that plan. He said, I had to do that, Norvel, I had to do it. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, me and Richard was praying on ORU campus one night. He says, and I was praying to God I had to have so many $1 million to finish a building. And I was asking God to send it to me. The Lord spoke to me and says, I'm not going to send you, I can't send you no money because you don't have it coming. I keep books on you. And ORU has received all the harvest for the seed they've sown. He said, I keep books on you and everybody else. And everybody receives the harvest for the seed they've sown. He said, I can't send you millions of dollars because, now listen closely, the Lord told Oral Roberts, Oral told me out of his own mouth, he said, the Lord told me I can't send you millions of dollars because you don't have it coming. I know what's in your books. I keep books in heaven. I know how much you gave and the day you gave it. And you've already been paid for all the seeds you've sown. You're always preaching sowing and reaping. The Lord said, practice what you preach. You want millions of dollars? Now you can get millions of dollars, but you have to sow a big seed. You can't get it by sowing a small seed. So he got up off of his knees and told Richard what God told him. Richard said, I believe it, Daddy. Daddy, I believe that. ORU hasn't sowed any seed in a long time. Let's sow a seed. Well, let's sow the biggest thing we got. What do you mean? He said, well, our jet plane's worth about $4 million. He said, $4 million? I was thinking about maybe, 100,000 or something. No, let's step out. So they decided to do it, and I called Ken Copeland and said, Ken, are you sitting down? Because Ken called me right after Oral called him. He said, are you sitting down? He says, we've decided to give you our $4 million jet plane. When they did that, Ken called me on the phone and says, Norvel, are you sitting down? I said, what do you mean? No, I'm standing up here talking to you, Ken. What do you mean? You want me to sit down? He says, well, Oral Roberts just called me and gave me a $4 million jet plane for free. I said, well, maybe I'll lay down. Give me a break. But Oral told me, he says, Norvel, after we did that, sold a $4 million seed, million, I have no earthly idea where it come from. He says, millions of dollars came in to the ORU office to finish that building. Millions. I had to have about, I think, 15 million or something. But anyway, it just came in. I mean, right away it came in. He said, it's hard to believe, but when you do it, you reap what you sow. Blessed be the name of the Lord forever.